good evening once again. Our topic is self-care. Why self-care matters. So the first question for tonight is what self-care practice did you engage in today? Like when you woke up this morning and throughout the day, is there anything or anything that you really do just for yourself? Just for yourself. It's a kind of a treat. Okay. It can be about um, having time to rest, relaxing, being mindful, just being kind to yourself first of all. Okay. So anything that you do for yourself is about self care. Maybe let's see what self care really is and what is it and why it matters. Self care is what people do for themselves to establish and maintain health and to prevent and deal with illness. So it's not something that we do after we get sick, but it's really something that we do to prevent getting sick. So this can be in the form of hygiene, nutrition, lifestyle, our living conditions, um, our beliefs, or other socioeconomic factors. And self medication can also be considered self care. But sometimes there's a problem with self medication, especially when we don't consult professionals. Okay? So instead of really taking care of the self, we get the opposite result. So let us also be careful with self medication. Okay? And according to the WHO, self care is our ability, um, the ability of individuals, families, and communities. So it's not just, although the word is self care, it does not just concern the individual because it's really about caring for the whole community. But uh, maintaining health, for that matter, is really about contributing, our doing something for our own part in order to contribute to community health. So it is the ability of individuals, families, and communities to promote health, prevent disease, maintain health, and to cope with illness and disability with or without the support of a healthcare provider. In our current medical system, we have disease management, like we maintain our medicines, but self care is really more of prevention so that we don't get sick again, maintaining our health. And whenever we get sick, we can easily bounce back to our normal day to day life. Okay, so it can be a combination of our own effort and also we can take care of ourselves better if we are also being supported by our healthcare providers or even our family members. Okay, and what are some of the reasons why we need to engage in self care? It can really improve overall well being, overall functioning. It is a way of living each day. Remember, it's something that we do each day. It's not something that we do when we get sick or after we get sick. It's a way of living each day that incorporates behaviors that help you feel refreshed, re-energized, and rested. So sino sa atin ngayon ang even if gabi na, siguro gabi na rin dyan, we still feel refreshed, re-energized, and rested. Okay. The practice also helps you manage the daily stresses in your life. If you are in school, if you are engaged in your work, in your relationship, and especially when it comes to our future, because the future is so uncertain. So what we have now is just this now moment, because the next moment is really uncertain. So what are the things that we can do as a way of showing or engaging ourselves so that we can maintain our health, we can maintain our well being, and we can feel good about ourselves mentally, physically, and emotionally. Okay? If we look at this medicine wheel, it is really balanced. It is balancing our mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical. If we talk about self care, we usually think about our physical health, but self care encompasses everything about us, our spiritual, emotional, and mental. So I think when we check our self care practices, we also have to ask, uh, is this particular practice also part of my emotional well being, mental well being? and spiritual well-being, not just my physical well-being. So what are some of the things that we can do every day? Of course, lahat tayo kumakain. But what kind of food are we eating? And what is the timing? And what is our attitude as we eat? And for some people, as they work, even if they have lunch break, for example, they do so many things at the same time, such that they don't really get to experience how it is to really enjoy our food. So, one is our food, the timing, our attitude towards eating, and um, as much as possible, we stay away from anything sugar. The healthiest kind of food is honey. I mean, sugar. If you talk about sugar, honey. Substitute our the processed sugar, especially with honey, because it mimics the chemical activity of our blood. And in this second image here, dito sa gitna, may tinatawag tayo na gut-brain axis because although we have a brain in the head, we also have this little brain in our tummy. So it makes sense that whenever we feel off, maybe it has something to do with the kind of food that we have just eaten. So we have to be mindful. Okay, they are always in constant communication with each other. With each other. So kung ano yung laman ng utak natin, sana synchronize din sila kung anong laman ng tiyan natin. Okay? Yung tinatawag na serotonin na neurotransmitter is actually produced more by our gut. So, pagkain talaga, kailangan nating paghahandaan. We take care of the kind of food that we eat. We really have to be mindful. Okay? And of course, apart from personal hygiene, physical activity, this was my first question earlier. Any self-care, and that also pertains to not just food, not just our mental state. Not most of us, almost when I ask this question, what is the first thing? What was the first thing that you did early this morning? I would always get the answer. I prayed, things like that. But sometimes what is missing because of our busy schedule, yung physical activity, yung pag-exercise talaga. And according to research, at least 150 hours in a week spread over the week, yung physical activity talaga. Lalo na sa quarantine, lockdowns in particular, we stay most of the time in our respective homes such that some people, they have actually stopped doing physical activity because gyms are already closed. But we can always, if we are mindful of our self-care practices, we don't give any excuses at all, because we can always do stationary walking, stationary jogging. It's not about the space, it's really about our commitment to practicing self-care. And apart from food, apart from physical activity, we also need time to rest, sleep. And how many hours do we need? It depends on our age, of course, and it depends so much on whether or not when we wake up each morning, we feel rested. And that's the best indicator that we have rested. Okay? Mentally and emotionally, much of our problems, really, it's not so much of what happens to our environment. It has a lot to do with what is in our head and how do we interpret situations in our environment. So it is our interpretation that can really create a problem. Okay, so regulate or master your mind. Be the mastermind of your mind. Regulate your emotions. So it's about training your mind to focus on what nourishes your body, mind, and spirit. So if when you eat, for example, is this going to nourish me physically? Is this going to nourish me mentally? Is this going to nourish me spiritually or emotionally? For some people who are into diet, for example, they have more cheat days than really being mindful of what they eat. So today is a cheat day. Tomorrow I will resume my diet. So if our attitude is like that, we are not consistent, then we are actually defeating the purpose, because our body, our mind, we thrive better if there is something consistent, there is something structured, something that we can look forward to every day. Okay, so the key here is really about consistency and persistent whenever we start on something. Okay, what else? Spiritually, we practice inner work. It's not about hard work at all, it's really about inner work. We don't need any props to do this. It's about plugging into source, whoever your source is. It can be Allah, God, um, higher being, however you call your God. It's about recharging my batteries. It's about recharging my mind, my body, my spirit, my emotions by plugging into source. And how can I plug in? I'm so busy. Remember, when something is important to us, we give it our time. And it's an irony that we just get to remember plugging into source whenever we feel so down, whenever there is no other way but really to plug in. Okay, but what is important, we are plugging in. And this also means that we detoxify ourselves. Social media detoxification. So unplug from gadgets. If you can have a holiday from social media, that will be better. Okay, and all this require that we spend time with ourselves. So it's really about making time for something, for someone that is important to us. So if we believe that we are important to ourselves, we are important to our loved ones, first of all, we make time for ourselves, because we can never give what we don't have. So we all have 24 hours. How much of those 24 hours have you devoted for yourself on a day-to-day basis? So it's important that we give ourselves personal check-ins to avoid multiple checkups with our medical health or mental health professionals. Wherever you are, take some time and recognize how we are doing both mentally and physically. Check-ins are the key. Uh, you don't need any props for this. You just have to be mindful. Like, you can set an alarm clock, for example. Until you get used to it, you don't need any alarm clocks anymore. So it's just about checking in. How am I? How am I feeling? Just scanning the body. If ever I feel frustrated, where in my body do I feel the frustration? So it's a kind of check-in that just doesn't take too long. A few seconds, a minute or two, that can already do wonders to yourself. The most important time in the world is the time that you make for yourself. Because if you make time for yourself, you feel good about yourself. It's just very natural to exude this feeling good to all those around you, to your loved ones, and even those who are just in your thoughts. They can receive those good vibrations. Okay? So fall in love with taking care of yourself in mind, body, and spirit, and always make self care a daily habit. Okay, and I think that's about it. Thank you so much.